This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Rabbi, today we're going to conclude this inyan of the different miftahs, the different ways of pronouncing Lashon HaKodesh, whether it's Havara Ashkenazis, Havara Sefardic, or the various other pronunciations. I'll just let you know I got a letter this week. Very interesting letter. I'll read to you the letter, and then we'll start with that. Dear Rabbi, okay, I enjoyed listening to the first share on pronunciation. Okay, and you'll hear at the end where this letter comes from. Okay, so you'll know that there are people...
Where you heard it? Here?
Yeah? No, he wasn't here. Okay. Just like to add a few traditions of Minhag Ashkenaz that you didn't discuss yet, which we still use in Holland. Okay? So this letter came from Holland. Number one, cholam. How do they pronounce a cholam in Holland? O-W. I believe ow. Taura. Or, how do they pronounce ayin? N-G. Shemang Yisrael, they say. Shemang Yisrael. He says all Ashkenazim had an ayin at one point. Let's say, what do you call Yaakov? What did they used to call Yaakov? Yankel. Right? So the ayin and had a guttural sound. So anyway, he was wishing us good Shabbos from Amsterdam. So he wants us to discuss the traditional Ashkenazic cholam and ayin. Here, we're not going to get into that. That's a little bit beyond the scope of the Shiur, but that's a good segue to begin the various pronunciations of the Nekudais. And now, today, in Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to speak about the following. You take a look on your sheet in number 19. Today, we're going to talk about a very common shaila. Last week, we discussed if somebody's allowed to switch from one minhag to the other, and we spoke out that the Minchas Yitzchak and Rav Kook, they both held that one may not switch from their traditional pronunciation. If you're noyeg like Minhag Ashkenaz, you cannot switch. We also brought down Rav Uziel said, no, it's permitted to switch. Why is it permitted to switch? What about the concept of Al Titosh Torah Simecha? So Rav Uziel quoted the Marashtam, that the halacha, the concept of Al Titosh Torah Simecha is only applicable when it comes to Isser V'Heter. But when it comes to just Minhag V'Alma, the concept of Al Titosh Torah Simecha does not apply. Okay. Today we're going to speak about the following. Now today, in the year 2013, in New York, you go to a regular shul, you go to any shul, whether it's Ashkenaz or Sfard, every Ashkenaz shul has Sfardim, every Sfard shul has Ashkenazim. You have a kid, he's been davening in the shul since he's Bar Mitzvah, he's a Sefardi, and he wants to learn, for his Bar Mitzvah Parsha, he wants to learn the way his family pronounces the words. Is it permitted for him to learn in an Ashkenazi shul? You have a Yeki, yeah? He's davening in a regular shul. He wants to learn his Bar Mitzvah Parsha. Do we let him learn like a Yeki, his Bar Mitzvah Parsha? So Hasidic guy, he wants to learn with his Havura, right? In a regular shul. Do we let him learn? Ever? What's the halacha? Do we have to keep standard? Do we have to keep a certain standard? Or could we break the rules once in a while? Or could we break the rules always? Or maybe it doesn't matter. It's all the same. Maybe it's all the same. Right? So, let's start and look at number 19. Look at number 19. In the Sefer Eidos Yisrael of Rav Henkin writes, even worse than switching from Minhag Ashkenaz to Minhag Sfard and vice versa, is switching your Havara. Is switching the way you pronounce the word. In other words, you want to switch from Ashkenaz to Sfard, that's a halbatzara. But to switch the way you pronounce the words, if you pronounce the words Minhag Ashkenaz, and now you want to say that's the tough. So says Rav Henkin, Garua mishinoi hanuschais hu shinoi hamiftaim v'ha'avarais. Worse than changing the nusach is changing the pronunciation. Kamay miftai Ashkenaz.
Rabbi Glatstein, didn't Rabbi Henkin that he suggested that we bring in...
Correct. Even though he suggested that we do switch, he's going to make that qualification. Good. Kamay miftai Ashkenaz Sfard. Taiman, Poland, Velita. So let's say, you grew up in New York City and all of a sudden you decide, I want to speak Litvish. I went to a Litvish yeshiva, I want to sound really yeshivish, right? So I'm going to say, Havul Hashem Kaved Ve'ez, right? Tartamira writes, he was once davening in a Litvish shul, and he was wondering, why they were trying to offer to Hashem chopped liver and goats. He didn't understand why everyone was davening. Ribbon Shalom, we want to give you chopped liver. Why were they so interested in giving Ribbon Shalom chopped liver? They were saying, Havu Hashem kaved, the liver, ve'ez, and goats. Right? So let's say you want to sound like a real lamdan, and you want to start laning, Vayisa Yankiv Raglov, right? Are you allowed to do that? No, you can't do that. Let's say you want to switch to Glatstein. You can't switch. However you were taught, you can't change. Unless you're changing based on someone who has definitive knowledge how to pronounce. Like Rav Henkin said, the Sefardim pronounce the letters correctly, and Rav Henkin suggested that we learn from the Sefardim how to pronounce the letters, right? But he says, Vein l'shanis b'zeh el b'makim shal pi yisoidei hadikduk nisbar l'kusa b'havara achas. Unless, based on the laws of grammar, we're able to clarify one specific havara. Umevuar b'svarim. Now look at this. It's explicit in the Svarim. Sheyud beis sha'arim barakia, that the 12 gates in the heavens, keneged kol hashvatim, correspond to all the shvatim. B'chol shevet yesh lo nusach acher. Every shevet has its own nusach. So here, this is actually a quote from the Arizal in the Shar HaKavanos, that there are 12 gates in the heavens, and every shevet has a different nusach. So what's this talking about? That this one davens Minhag Ashkenaz, Minhag Sfard, Minhag Italki. Says Rav Henkin, it's not just talking about nusach, it's talking about pronunciation. Kenira sheneskavnu chilufei ha'avares. Says Rav Henkin, I feel this is talking about pronunciation. Ki b'loizeh hayetzarch likroi b'Torah b'kama minei havares. Because otherwise, if you didn't have to stick to your personal tradition, Shema zehu hanachain, you would have to lane in every possible pronunciation, because maybe that's the correct one. You have to say that every specific pronunciation has some root in the Torah. Every kahal has to choose a shliach tzibur, the kairei, b'Torah, and read the Torah shekarei b'havar sha'akal karen. Yeah.
What if somebody has yurtzeit and chiyuv to daven?
So
in the shul where they daven.
So that's part of the question. That's part of the question. The question is, yurtzeit, wonderful, but there's a shul here. So the individual doesn't take precedence over the tzibur. So now the question is, so let's see. That's the question, right? Or Bar Mitzvah kid. The kid's been practicing for 13 years, so it's his bad mazel. His father had a daven in Ashkenazi shul. Look,
First Yotzeit, let's say it is. And he's in a place where he couldn't get to...
You know what the Chavos Yoel writes in his Chuvas? He says, I love Aristotle, I love Plato, but I love the truth more than all. So the truth is the truth. The halacha is the halacha. So now we want to know. Now if the guy's is not mature enough to be able to handle the halacha, so we'll have to deal with that. But now we want to know what's the halacha, right? What's the halacha?
How is it possible that every Shevet had Nosach Acher? In the time of Moshe Rabbeinu,
what?
Moshe Rabbeinu only had one Nosach from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
No.
How did every Shevet?
No, so the Arizal is saying a very big chiddush. The Arizal is saying that every Shevet was given its own nusach. The same way every Shevet had its own banner, its own flag, every Shevet had its own gate.
But they all came from the same place.
Yeah, right.
They came from Yaakov Avinu. What, they deviated from Yaakov?
No, Hashem gave over. That's part of the beauty of the religion. That
where did they pick it up from?
It was.
They were all in the Midbar. They were all in the same place. Nobody went to Europe or to Spain or anywhere. They were all in the same place constantly. How did every Shevet have its own nosach?
That's how it was given. Who created the tefillah? Who invented the tefillah?
People who went to different countries.
No, Sarizal is saying no. The Arizal is saying no. The Arizal is saying that nusach is not just a function of culture and travel and galus. Originally, the same way that the Gemara says, if you had a nature to live by the sea coast, chances are you're from Shevet Zevulun. If you had a nature that you always wanted to go to court, you're probably from Shevet Dan. Oh, wait a second, we're all Jews. Why does each Shevet have a different nusach? The answer is Hashem created different personalities, different flags, and different nuschais. So that's the question of Rav Henkin. Is it permitted for somebody to daven differently? Now we're not talking about nusach. When it comes to nusach, you got to follow the minhag of the shul. You're davening in a shul that davens nusach Ashkenaz. You're saying Kaddish. You got to say Kaddish nusach Ashkenaz. You're davening in a shul that davens nusach Sfard. You have to say Kaddish nusach Sfard. You're davening Ashkenaz shul. You got to drop your revach v'hatzalah. You're davening in a Sfard shul. You got to go for the revach v'hatzalah. That's it, right? You're davening Ashkenaz shul, and you won't get called up to an aliyah. You want to do Moray v'Raboisai Hashem Yimachem. Not in the shul. It's not the minhag of the shul. You're going to a Sfard shul. You got to follow the pattern. Yeah.
If somebody comes in, he's a stranger, and he starts davening. You say, "Hey, you shut him off."
Somebody.
Shut him off.
No. Well, what if that's like anytime? So now the question is, what's the halacha?
Hold it. You're not outside.
Well, let's say somebody comes into shul and the shul davens nusach Ashkenaz, and they start saying Chazal Sashat nusach Sfard. Someone should go over and remind him that it's not the minhag of the shul. Now the question is, should you embarrass him? So now you'll ask your local rabbi what the correct halacha is. But in terms of how what he should do, yeah, of course he should follow the nusach of the shul. Like, what? Yeah. Okay. But in any event, the Rav Henkin says like this. He says like this: Ubevadai shulacharchila yesh l'chalkal livchar shatz. Every kehila should choose a shliach tzibur b'kar b'Torah shekar b'havar shakol karin. If it's a shul, they're Glatsteinim, so they should get a Glatsteini b'Koreh. They have a Polish shtivel, they should get somebody who pronounces it like Gerach Chassid. They have every kehila should have a shliach tzibur that pronounces the words like them. But under pressing circumstances, you could get a shliach tzibur that reads it the way he reads it. In other words, your question is, are there exceptions to the rule? Do we allow? Yes, b'shas hadchak. So let's say a kid is a bar mitzvah, and this is how he reads it. He can read it. Let's say someone has yahrzeit, and he can't read it like everybody else. He's been trained that way. It's so ingrained in him, he can't revert back to the way everyone. So he could do it like that. But next week, when we're looking for a shiur tzibur, we're not calling on this guy. We let him do it for his yahrzeit, but that's it. Yeah.
Is that b'shas hadchak for the shiur tzibur or for the tzibur?
Look, whenever you have b'shas hadchak, now the question is, what is a shas hadchak? So there,
For the tzibur or for the person?
Well, both. If the guy is not going to be davening on his yahrzeit, that could be a shas hadchak for the tzibur, depending on who it is, right? Depending on who it is. If it's a guy who understands that there's something called minhag tzibur, and he's saying, you know what? It's more important for the tzibur to have someone daven like their nusach than for me to get up there. Right? So then it's not shesoim. Now, why? What's the reason that we allow someone who b'shas hadchak is not reading it like us? What's the reason we allow them to go up there? Shesoim chen al zeh shel dididei ulekavasei havar nechaynehi kfiyam s'hashvam. Because we say like this: even though it's not our tradition, but it's his tradition, and therefore under these pressing circumstances we'll allow it. But here's the big problem. You have a guy who went to Ashkenazi yeshiva, his parents are Sefardi, and for high school he went to Hasidic yeshiva. So now how is he reading the words? It's a mixed up. He's oi, o, ta, sa, and it's common. So how is he reading it? Like a Mishka Babel. Says Rav Henkin, it could be he's not even Yotze B'diavad. Could be he's not Yotze B'diavad. Because what's he saying? Which branch from Shamayim are you using? You're using Ruvain's, Shimon's, a little from Ruvain, a little from Zavulon, a touch of Naphtali. Says Rav Henkin, it's karov to say he's not even Yotze B'diavad. So you got to pick a nusach. Either daven like Litvish, Hasidish, Sefardic, Italian, Russian. Pick something, but don't mix it up. Pick something, get it down, but don't pick the tough from the Hebrew day school and the oi from the high school and the Glatsteini from your Rosh Hashiva. You got to pick one havara. He says, yeah.
He was going to Rabbi Olban, and he said, Rabbi Olban, I have to go somewhere else. And Rabbi Olban said, no, you stay here. And both of them, they learned Sefardic.
So that's what he's saying. B'shas hadchak, it's permitted, but not regularly.
No, just
right?
for Bar
For Bar Mitzvah, right. He says like this. He says like this. It could be someone who's davening with mixed up enunciations, she'ein yotzin afilu b'diavad. Could be You're not yotzei even b'diavad. Okay, so pick your nusach, pick your havara. They're all good. Elu ve'elu divrei lekim chayim. Right? Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim. Kol echad yavai al makamei b'shalom. But don't mix it up. Okay.
One parent, if it's an intermarriage, one parent is Ashkenazic.
Follow your father.
One parent is Sefardic.
Follow your father.
He would be entitled to both. Okay.
No, he's not.
It goes by the father.
Goes by the father.
What do you say?
Okay.
In this case, Abraham just said.
What?
In this case, Abraham said about Rabbi Orban to let the
Yeah.
Sefardi. If he says that he wants to go someplace else, why not?
Sure, the kid could go somewhere else, but we're not gonna send the person somewhere else because again, we're saying that in general the nusach, the pronunciation of the shul should be streamlined, but we allow for exceptions. Now, what if the guy says, "I have yahrzeit, but I daven nusach Sfard. Can I daven nusach on the shul?" No. What do you mean? But he's gonna get all huffy puffy. Sorry. We hope you get over it.
You know, there is this shul in Israel, it's in Bnei Brak.
Yeah.
It's like Shomer Shabbos, different rooms.
And they let you daven whatever nusach you want?
It comes for the Amen, that's
even though we think naturally, oh, what a beautiful thing. Because the shul has to have a nusach. So it's a makom. You know, I'll tell you, this week's Parsha, I want to tell you something very interesting. This week's Parsha, Parsha's told us, right? It says Rivka didn't know what she was having. She had a question, right? Because she was passing by the shul, someone was kicking to come out. She was passing by the Beis Avodah Zarah, someone was kicking to come out. She doesn't know what's going on. Is the kid a tzaddik? So she goes to Shem Be'ever, and Shem says, "Don't worry. One kid is going to be Gadol Hadar. The other guy is going to be a mass murderer." Oh, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Yiddish Nachas. What? Esav? Esav was a bad guy.
Both were not going to be murderers.
No, she didn't know what she was having. She thought she was having one. So why is she breathing a sigh of relief? So in the Sefardic they would say like this. It used to be, she thought she was having one kid. One kid, he was a shul, he wants to go in. A church, wants to go in. You know what you call this kid? Wishy-washy. Everything's good. Someone who says everything's good will get nowhere in life. Yeah, but now I'm having a Gadol and a Rasha. The Gadol will be good, and the Rasha, at least there's a chance for him. He could always do tshuva. But at least he has a backbone. But if you don't have a backbone, you don't have a shita, you don't have a nusach, you don't have a principle, everything's good. Whatever they show you, this minhag, that minhag, this skula, that skula, this good thing, that good thing, everything's wonderful. That's not, Rivka says that Rivka was bewildered, she didn't know what to do. To get a kid like that, wishy-washy is the worst. Even a Russia is better than a wishy-washy. That's what they said in Sefardic. What?
Tolerance is not a good midah.
Tolerance is good.
It's nice.
But you have to know when. Right? Like Rav Shamshon Fal Hirsch used to sign his name. Ha-emes v'ha-shalom ehava. First comes truth, and then comes peace. Right?
So in the end, when the Mashiach comes, and everybody has to go to 1 minute, what's going to be?
No, who says? The same way, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, they all had different nusachim. There are 12 gates in heaven. Do we know that when Mashiach comes, 12
so the Arizal, which gate he was davening?
The Arizal said like this. This is a different topic, but the Arizal said that if you don't know what nusach you daven nusach hari, that's the master key. In other words, Ashkenaz is this gate, this is this gate, and nusach hari is the master key. You can get into all the gates.
There's no nusach.
And what is based on nusach dari? On what?
What is it based? It's the master key. I don't know.
There's no
it's mixed. For all the nusachim?
No, it's the special master key.
There's no nusach Moshe Rabbeinu?
No.
Why not? What did he daven? What nusach did he daven?
Levi. Nusach Levi. Nusach Levi. Okay. Rabbi Isai, now let's just get into the halachic aspect of this. The halachic aspect. It's very interesting. He says, very interesting. If you look in the Shas Tshuva 3-day Eish, 3-day Eish says, where does this come from? That at least under certain limited circumstances, we are tolerant of someone who davens with a different pronunciation. And again, when it comes to nusach, you got to follow the nusach. There's no tolerance for that. But how do I know when it comes to pronunciation we're tolerant? So he quotes the Rambam. I'll let you take a look. The Rambam is in number 21. Take a look at number 21. The Rambam says like this. Look carefully. This is the Rambam Hilchos Tefillah, Parak Ches, Halacha Yud Aleph Beis. Ein memanin shliach tzibur, ela gadol shebet tzibur, b'chachmasai uv'masav. We do not appoint a shliach tzibur, only the greatest member of the tzibur, in wisdom and in ma'aseh. Very interesting, right? So the Rambam, Halacha l'maaseh. Who's the shliach tzibur? The greatest person in the tzibur. The greatest person. That's why Rav Nosson Adler in his shul, he davened for the Amud. The Haflah, he davened for the Amud. V'im hayazakin, and if besides the fact that he's smart, he's also old, hareza meshubach b'yoser. That's even more wonderful. Okay, so it's good. If you're old, it's a good thing. Old is good. Umishtaden liyo shliach tzibur adam shekalei arev v'raga likros. Who should be the shliach tzibur? You should have a nice voice. You should be accustomed to the words. Umi shaloi nismalei zekanoi. If your beard hasn't grown in yet. If you're not old enough where the facial hair is coming in, if you're still only shaving once every 2 weeks, you're not ready to be the shots. Yeah? You could be the shots for smaller things. Okay? So Halacha Yud Aleph is saying that in order to be a Shliach Tzibur, you have to have credentials.
Is the mustache okay?
What?
Mustache is okay?
No, as long as you could grow. As long as you could grow. It's a simon that you could grow, right? Okay. Halacha Yud Beis. V'chein ha'ileg. An ileg. What's an ileg? Kagan misha kare la'alef ayin, or la'ayin aleph. Someone who pronounces an aleph and ayin, and an ayin and aleph. So I guess we're all an ileg, right? Somebody who can't differentiate between an aleph and an ayin and an aleph. If you cannot pronounce the letters properly, we do not appoint your shliach tzibur. Okay, so halacha yud aleph is to be a shatz, you have to be worthy. Halacha yud beis is to be a shatz, you have to know how to pronounce the letters. Now I'm going to ask you the following question before we read the next halacha. You tell me the next halacha. Is it a matter of halacha yud aleph or is it a matter of halacha yud beis? The harav, the Rabbi, mimane echad mitalmidav, could say to one of his talmidim, lehispalel lefanav b'tzibur, to daven before him. A Rebbe could say to the Talmud, daven, even though I'm supposed to daven, I'm the rabbi. No, you daven for me. What's the Rambam saying here? So the Kesef Mishnah explains that this halacha is going back to halacha Yud Aleph. That even though in halacha Yud Aleph we said, in order to be the shliach tzibur, you have to be the chacham, you have to be the one with the most wisdom, with the greatest masim. Then halacha Yud Beis, the Rambam is saying that the Rebbe could say to the Talmud, you know what? I'm greater than you, but you daven for the Amud. Says Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg, the Svidei Yesh, if that was the correct reading of the Rambam, then this halacha is in the wrong halacha. If the Rambam was saying that the Rebbe could tell his Talmud to daven, even though the Talmud is not as great as the Rebbe, why wouldn't the Rambam put this in halacha Yud Aleph? What does it have to do with halacha Yud Beis? Must be, says Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg, you have to read the Rambam like the Or Sameach. That what? Do you know what the Rambam is saying? The Rebbe knows about a certain Talmud that he could learn a Tosfos, but he can't read an ayin. He could learn a Tosfos, but he says, Matzmiach Keren Yeshua. Hey, it kills the ears. It's like, take a Tylenol when you hear that. Matzmiach Keren Yeshua. It's Keren. It's Keren. Whenever you have 2 segels in a row, it's always Milel. Sheker. Keren. Chesed. Matzmiach Keren Yeshua. What? Melech. Melech. Not Melech. Melech. There's only one exception to the rule. It's MS, not MS, right? Everyone sings MS. No, MS is sheker, right? Right? It should be MS. Right, very good, Mr. Lizzie. That's because the word MS is not 2 segels in a row. It's a chat of segel. Very good, right? So the rule is MS. MS is sheker, but sheker is MS, right? So, but let's say you have the kid. The kid, he's learning Taisvis with Rabbi Kiva. He can't read. Right? He doesn't know Melel Melra. The Melel Melra is like them. It's a kind of coffee. It's a flavor of coffee. Right? So could he daven for the Amud? The answer is the Rebbe could say to him, daven for Amud. You know why? Because the Rebbe is so used to his mispronunciation, it doesn't throw the Rebbe off. Says the Ar Sameach, the Rambam in Halachic Beis doesn't mean that the Rebbe could tell the Talmud to daven, even though the Rebbe should be davening, because he's the most chashuv, he could tell the Talmud. Then it should be in Halachic Yud Aleph. The fact that the Rambam puts this halach in Halachic Yud Beis is saying like this: if the Rebbe is used to his student's mispronunciation, he could tell the student to daven. Says the Sefardic, nowadays, if you're davening in an Ashkenazi shul, but you have so many good friends who are Sefardim, that if they daven for the Amud, is everyone going to start snickering and smirking and, hey, hear that? Nah, every day you hear, right? Every other guy they're more Sefardim in the shul than Ashkenazim, right? So it's not going to throw anyone off. What's the reason why everyone should daven one way? Because we don't need drawing attention. We don't need anybody, laughing, snickering. But if nowadays everyone is used to all the various pronunciations, the guy's Hasidish, he gets up to daven in the shul, nobody's batting an eyelash. People are accustomed to that. They remember that's how their grandparents davened it, that's how their friends davened it. So therefore, it says the Sefardic. But if you want to look where he says this is in Sefardic is in number 20. This is on page 8. Page 7. Page 7. In number 20, the left-hand column, the third paragraph, the Achshav Navai Levar Shitas HaRambam. And therefore the Sefardic concludes the following. Right before number 21, in the paragraph that begins, Upuk Chazima Amadavar, he says, go look what people are doing. Shebekihilos Rabbis Yeshnam Anoshim Me'artzei Shonos. In many shuls, there are people from various lands. Shel Chol Echad Yesh Havar Acheres. That in each land, they have a different pronunciation. K'may Anshe Lita, Anshe Galatia, Shemashunim Habaroseim, Ubechazos Manichem Chalechem Mehem Laver Lefnei Ater Likur Ater Ve'im Moicha Negeta. Everybody knows in every shul, we don't check your driver's license and your passport to figure out what country you come from before you get up to the Amud. We let everything go. We let everything slide, and he even brings down that it's brought down the Sefer Neitzer Matai, that Rav Nosson Tzvi Friedman, who is a Rav in Bnei Brak, he brings down a story that the Rav, Ungarian Rav, wanted to make a rule that if you're a Galiciano, you can't daven for the Amud. Because they pronounce the Tseire, how do they pronounce the Tseire? I. So they say, what? Elekai Avraham. Right? My God Avraham. So it's mamish chira for giduf, right? So you want to say no, they can't daven for the Amud, but different goyin said it's not true. We see from the Gemara in Bar Mitzvahs that Rabbi let Rabbi Chia daven for the Amud. That basically under b'shas hadchak we let it slide. We let it slide. And
I know what Shliach Sibor, who used to pronounce beside Shumos, Betzimis.
Betzimis?
Yeah. No. When he used to go over to Europe, everybody used to say Tzimis is davening.
All right. Look, it says Kavidas Hashem Mehoincha. You honor Hashem with what's important to you. So if you like Tzimis. But he says like this.
I'll kill him. That guy saved the Jews.
Okay. So the conclusion of the Sefardic is, if necessary, you could put up someone to the Amud, you could have somebody laying even different than the Havara, not the Nusach, the Havara of the Tzibor. Okay, we'll see one final Maramakim, number 23, from Rabbi Vadia Yosef. Chacham Rabbi Vadia? What? Number 23. The Arizal?
Yeah.
What was the information that Rav Higgins said that
number 23. What?
You said that Rav Higgins said every Ashkenazi yeshiva they should have somebody to
In other words, in the meantime, before you know how to do it, you continue pronouncing it your tradition until you have someone authoritative who can teach you how to do it.
Page 10, you have 23 twice. Page 10.
Okay, yeah, page 10. He says like this. Here's the question. B'nai yeshiva Sefardim, shalom dim yeshiva Ashkenazi. You have Sefardim in the Ashkenazi yeshivas, right? Very common today. You have Sefardim in every yeshiva gedola. B'shoim in Kiddush. I have Dala. B'mivtav Avarashina, right? They come to the shul and they want to hear Kiddush. They want to hear Havdalah. The Ashkenazi Kiddush is very different than the Sephardic Kiddush. The Havdalah is different. We pronounce it different. The words are different. Are they Yotzei, or do they have to, go hear Kiddush for somebody else? Says Chacham Rabbi Vadia Zechatzak Levracha. He brings down the machlokes between the Minchas Yitzchak Rav Kook against the Rav Uziel. And he says that bottom line is he sides with Rav Uziel that it is permitted to switch your Havara. Havara is not so critical that it's permitted to switch. Now let's read the last paragraph. V'chein ba'kodesh chazisei l'hagon Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg. I saw in the holy writings of Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg, B'shal Sechuvas Ridayesh, shenishal b'davar b'dvar ne'orim Ashkenazim. You have Ashkenazic kids, shalom dim b'vei sefer, dati b'mivta Sefardi. What is this talking about? Rabbi Chil Yaakov Weinberg was a Rosh Hashiva and Rav in Berlin, in Germany. And in the German schools, they started adopting Havara Sefardit to make it more modern sounding. So the kids are growing up with parents who are traditional Ashkenazim, and they're learning to pronounce Hebrew Havara Sefardit. It comes to Bar Mitzvah, and the parents don't know what to do. They're all embarrassed. The kid's going to come into shul and lane, right? The Havara Sefardit. Uchshemagin lemitzvos rotzim likur b'mivta Sefardit shurglu bay ba'oid shakol b'beis hakneses nogim likur b'mivta Ashkenazi. And the Sridei says that he's not going to stick his head between the machlokes between the Raya and Rav Uziel, but he'll say like this. He says, we can allow the kid to lane in whatever he was trained. Why? Because we know the Rama tells us that if somebody made a mistake when they're laning, let's say somebody made a mistake in dikduk, if it doesn't change the meaning of the word, you don't correct them, you don't make them go back. Somebody says S instead of ace. Someone says vayidaber instead of vayidaber. They shouldn't do it. They should learn how to lane collective, but we don't change them. But someone who makes a mistake with an akuda that doesn't change the meaning, we don't make them go back. Second line on the next column. Ashkenazim who are laning of a Sephardi yoytze. Look what's going on in the world. Even among the Ashkenazim, every Ashkenazi pronounces the Lashon differently. Rabbi Vadia writes in another tshuva, it's brought down in the Sefer Lekach HaKemach, that the Chazon Ish did not allow someone to go up to the Amud with a different pronunciation than Minhag than what was going on in that shul. That's what's brought down in the Sefer Lekach HaKemach. Says Rabbi Vadia, did the Chazon Ish write this halacha l'maisa? No. So you heard a maisa? We don't paskin from stories. No. We don't use anecdotal evidence for halacha. Oh, but I remember when I was a kid, I asked my 7th grade Rabbi, and he told me he was walking together with the Reb Moshe. Yeah. Beautiful. The chances that actually happened are very, very unlikely. We don't use stories to paskin. But this story I heard from a reliable source that he told me his uncle once heard that Reb Moshe, not Uncle Moshe, right? You have to know stories are. I once heard somebody once heard Victor Miller, right? Somebody once heard that. And he said, asked him about Gedolim stories. Miller said 90% of the stories are not true. Yeah. And even the story I'm telling you might not be true, right? But to paskin based on stories, says Rav Avadia, it's only anecdotal. We weren't there. We don't know what the Chazon Ish said. But he says, halacha l'maisa, B'shas hadchak, you could allow any pronunciation. We're not makbid. But so he says you could be Yotzei Kiddush, you Yotzei Havdalah, Kalmakai. But Kriyas Parsha Zachar. When it comes to Parsha Zachar, B'chein Parshas Para or Parshas Para, Shem Edairaisa, Roy V'Nachain L'Chalecha L'Shmaya Kriyas HaParsha K'fi Minhag Avoisav. You should listen to the way you are accustomed to pronouncing words. What do you do if you're in a Sefardi, yeshiva, and you're an Ashkenazi, or vice versa? For Parsha Zachar, you make a separate minyan just to hear Parsha Zachar. But Parshas Chayisara, Parshas Toldos, you could listen like the Tzibor and your Yotzi de Chayvasai. So Rabbi, we're not here today to say who's all correct. Kulam Ahuvim, Kulam Berurim, Kalechad Yavai Amakayma B'Shalayim. Have a wonderful.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.